I'm here to be an all-time great.
You're now rocking with the best.
Purple yellow, purple yellow, purple yellow, purple yellow.
The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles.
Welcome to the Bigbabayjonathan Sports Podcast.
Oh, he's smoking hot.
The latest Laker news.
Another great Showtime feed.
The greatest Lakers show.
This is going to be legendary for a long time.
This is the Bigbabayjonathan Sports Podcast.
Lakers all day.
Go Lakers!
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Big Baby. What's poppin', everybody? It's Bigbabayjonathan here. Welcome to the latest edition of the Bigbabayjonathan Sports Podcast. And I got Brandon Robinson from Scoop B Radio. How's it going, man? Hope all is well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, man. Thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for coming on once again.
I could have been anywhere in the world, but I'm here with you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. In today's show, man, we're going to talk about the Lakers, what the expectation is, and the James Harden and Westbrook speculation. Are they going to get traded? Or are they going to start training camp with the Houston Rockets? So let's first dive into that. So, Brandon Robinson, what are you hearing about James Harden and Westbrook? Are they going to stay in Houston, or are they going to leave Houston?
Well, the training camp starts pretty soon. Preseason, I know, starts as early as December 13th. I know the Brooklyn Nets will open up their preseason December 13th against the Washington Wizards. That being said, when you look at what's going on, I can tell you James Harden did actually request a trade, as did Russell Westbrook. Sources share with me on the Westbrook side that it has more to do with not wanting to play for team owner Tillman Fertitta. I know there was a report that came out about Mr. Fertitta's alignment with the Republican Party and current U.S. President Donald Trump. But I know that there are some other issues that were underlying, even going back into the playoffs. When you look at Mike D'Antoni's desire not to resign with them as an organization, and then you look at a couple years prior where, Mike D'Antoni's coaching staff was literally eradicated, the assistant coaching staff. I know one in Irv Rowland was removed, and over the years it just became a contentious thing. So to directly answer your question, the way it's looking now, it seems as though Harden and Westbrook will start the season there, and I know that the Knicks, as well as the Charlotte Hornets, and as well as the Los Angeles Clippers and the Washington Wizards, were teams that were aligned with potential moves relating to Russell Westbrook. I was getting calls about the Clippers as it related to Russell Westbrook, but ultimately, with some of the moves that they made in the off season, a very brief off season with the Detroit, they got a big man from Detroit. They signed. They also signed DeMarcus Cousins from a Laker. So there's some things that are changing, but I think if the season were to start now, you definitely see them there. That doesn't mean that things could not or won't change. I compared this Harden situation kind of to like Anthony Davis. If you remember my reporting back in the fall of 2018 as it related to Anthony Davis, this was a contentious thing, both the Pelicans side and the Los Angeles Lakers side, and it ended up costing a GM Dell Demps his job in New Orleans, and then ultimately the Lakers got a top first round pick and were able to trade that in exchange for other pieces with the New Orleans Pelicans. So I kind of compared the situation to that. The only difference is got the Sixers and the Nets who were believed to be favorites. The Nets have gotten better. The Sixers have gotten better. I know the Celtics quietly were a team that had some interest in Harden. It looks like things have kind of calmed down. I think you'll see some other teams trying to potentially levy to get some type of leverage in potentially getting Harden. But he'll start the season as one of the Rockets likely.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. But if I know the Brooklyn offer was, they've basically thrown everybody at Houston. But if I was Houston, I would say give me Kyrie. Kyrie for Harden. Because if Houston gets all those assets, I feel like that's not fair. Houston should ask for as much as they can get for James. So James Harden is one of the best scorers of all time, in my personal opinion. So if you have a player like that, you got to throw a kitchen sink. But I just feel like Houston's going to hold on to him. Same with Westbrook, and they're going to try to ride it out, because I did see a report that they're willing to go uncomfortable with James Harden and Westbrook. So we're gonna see. Won't be surprised if there's altercations during games. You never know. So it's gonna be a crazy season for the Rockets, man. Overall.
For sure. You won't hear any argument on me there, Jonathan.
Yeah, and also too, man. Dwight leaves the Lakers for Philly, man. So overall, I saw some reports that the contract wasn't what Dwight wanted. Can you elaborate on that?
It was more along the lines of two things. One, I know that Dwight appeared on Eton Thomas's podcast, discussed they're gonna have to pay me.
Yeah.
When you look at the Dwight Howard market, his market was more was less lucrative than DeMarcus Cousins. As I reported pre-DeMarcus signing with the Rockets, there were a bevy of teams that were interested in DeMarcus. You had teams like the Celtics, teams like the Rockets, teams like the Washington Wizards. It would have been cool to see another pairing with DMC and John Wall in Washington under Scott Brooks. But ultimately, when you look at Dwight Howard kind of came into the Lakers in the back door because DeMarcus was hurt. And there were still questions. I have respect for Dwight, but there were still popular opinion questions as it related to Dwight socially and some of the things from his past, which I think he righted his wrongs. Personally, I think he has. But I think the market is not the same. And I don't think it came down to money. If I'm not mistaken, in fact, the Lakers could offer him a little bit more. But he wanted a big payday. I think ultimately what it was Dwight wanted more playing time. If you look at Dwight, for example, Anthony Davis is looking to strictly stick to the 4 position and he doesn't like playing 5. Dwight Howard wants to play more 5 in games, but at the end of games, Anthony Davis was closing games. Dwight wants to be in the situation Anthony Davis is in, and he has the opportunity in Philadelphia. He lacks a bona fide center. Which I'm wondering if Philadelphia, in fact, is going to shift Joel Embiid to the power forward position for time. Because you look at the playoffs this past season, Ben Simmons was playing the 4 position, and his natural position is point guard. And they shifted Shake Milton to the point guard in the playoffs and shifted Ben to the 4. The Sixers are going to be a very interesting and entertaining team to watch, particularly because not only do you have Ben Simmons, not only do you have Joel Embiid, not only do you also have Tobias Harris, but you add Dwight Howard into the mix. He's healthy. He played fairly well. To be honest with you, in the playoffs, I think him sitting out a lot during the Rockets, the series in the playoffs against the Rockets gave him a lot of rest, and he was able to dominate in the way he was supposed to against the Denver Nuggets. And so I think in the Eastern Conference, he hasn't played in the Eastern Conference in a little while. Well, he played for the Washington Wizards, but being on a competitive team, you haven't seen him play on a competitive Eastern Conference team since his days with the Orlando Magic. So I'm intrigued to see that, but I'll also make mention sources shared with me that basically he couldn't go to Boston because he and Kemba Walker don't get along during their days from Charlotte. And then also that was limited. So I know he has some sort of relationship with Steve Kerr out in Golden State. But ultimately, the Warriors would have been a great fit. But Philadelphia is no slouch either. They hired a new coach in Doc Rivers, and good situation to be in. So I like it.
Yeah, me too, man. It's unfortunate Dwight left the Lakers, and because I know when Dwight tweeted, like, yeah, he's coming back, but as soon as he deleted the tweet and they said he hasn't made a decision yet, I already knew he was bouncing. Like, I just had that feeling because I feel like they said, okay, we agree to it, and then I bet you that Montrezl Herald probably called Rob Pelinka and said, I'm coming. That's why they probably pulled the plug on that deal. That's what I get the sense.
The Harold situation also, comes about because he is under clutch, the same agency that represents Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and others. And so, he doesn't have to change apartments. He plays for the Clippers. He plays for the Lakers now. From one side of the hall down to the other side of the hall. But I think additionally, the Clippers have dealt with a lot of things internally. There's no real voice, the way it's been told to me, within that locker room. You add now Ty Lue as the head coach of that team. I think that there's going to be some soul searching. This was only year 1 with the Clippers. I definitely won't bash the Clippers. They have a great roster, but as it relates to chemistry and things of that sort, I just think that the Lakers have more of a superb product on the floor. Just the relationship building is just there. I think LeBron James is an excellent relationship builder. And I think, when you add pieces like Harrell, you add pieces like Marc Gasol, you also add pieces like Dennis Schroeder. The sky's the limit. And, they're still looking for, potentially a swingman. Guys like Nicholas Batum has been tossed around. Glenn Robinson III, currently a member, free agent, played for the 76ers this season. I sat down with Glenn Robinson III back in February out in Philly, and when he had just gotten traded to the 76ers. And our relationship spans about 3 or 4 years when he first got drafted. And one of the things that he talked about was just how much he learned how to be a winner and be a champion. Obviously, his dad, Glenn Robinson, played in the league for a superfluous amount of years, but being in a locker room with Steph Curry, being in a locker room with with Draymond Green and some of those other things, head coach Steve Kerr, despite the fact that the Warriors definitely had a down year, he got a lot of playing time in Philadelphia, and there were eyes on him. So I hope that that something the pendulum can swing his way. But yeah, the Lakers are looking for either another center on their roster or a swingman of the caliber of Glenn Robinson III.
Oh, that's going to I love his game. Love his energy. Both ends of the floor, can shoot the mid-range. And for the center position, because I know the Lakers are going to play AD at the power forward. That's why Marc Gasol is going to be playing center, but he's going to be playing on the wing, on the top of the key. Let AD go to work. But for me, I feel like the Lakers should go get Pau Gasol. You know what I mean?
I think it would be cool, even for nostalgia's sake, to have the brothers play, be teammates. What a great way to kind of close things out. But it depends on where Pau Gasol's health is. I know, he being on the Blazers roster this season, they made him pretty much a player's coach or a coach player, however you want to phrase it, this season. But when you look at Marc Gasol, I definitely think that he's the defensive anchor. And for you to move, Rajon Rondo to the Atlanta Hawks, I just wrote a story about it. I'm a senior writer at Heavy.com. I just wrote a story about Rajon Rondo and his move, opting out of the last year and then signing a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Atlanta Hawks, to basically be the veteran in residence for the Hawks. But I look at that situation. Yeah, I look at that situation with the Lakers. It legitimately plays LeBron at his natural point guard position like he was in his first stint in Cleveland. And he has a better defensive anchor with Marc Gasol, and it allows Anthony Davis to freely roam the perimeter, the post, what have you. And so you're potentially looking at a starting lineup with LeBron James at point guard, Wesley Matthews at the 2, at the 3 spot. You have some options there, but 4 and 5 would be Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol. And their bench is pretty exponential. So, to add another piece in that regard, either a perimeter player or a center, that would be brilliant. Oh, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would be at the 2. Wesley Matthews would be at the 3.
Yeah, 100%, man. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lakers gave Horton Tucker a chance. Giannis's brother a chance, and Devontae Cacog. I wouldn't be surprised if Lakers said, "Go ahead, go give yourself an opportunity." You know what I mean? Because Frank Vogel's a great coach. I trust his staff. I know they're gonna teach them the right things. And also, too, what is the latest about Anthony Davis? Do you know when he'll sign his extension?
I spoke to someone today with a clutch, and essentially he's taking his time. I think that ultimately, when it comes down to what he wants to do, it depends on whether he's going to sign a 1+1 deal, whether he wants to sign 2 years, 3 years. There are reports about the potential of Giannis Antetokounmpo joining the Lakers. I remember the report that I put out a couple years ago about Kevin Durant, and it didn't come to fruition. One thing I can share is that was part of the blueprint of what the Lakers were thinking about, potentially putting 3 stars together. So while KD did not join the Los Angeles Lakers and ended up signing with the Brooklyn Nets, what I can share with you is that you got the first piece in 2018 with LeBron James, you got in Anthony Davis, and then the last piece could be potentially Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll see. You have certain people that have a level of familiarity with Giannis, and one, his brother, who is a 2-way player with the Lakers, and 2, Lakers assistant coach Jason Kidd, who coached Giannis Antetokounmpo during their time with the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's highly speculative, but certain things online that make sense. And I think what Anthony Davis decides to do will be contentious upon how the Lakers continue to build the roster with the last couple of pieces. Add one. He's already committed. It's a matter of just the numbers making sense. Kind of reminds me a lot of LeBron James during his first stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers, when instead of signing a longer term extension like Melo did, where he signed a 5-year deal with the extension with the Denver Nuggets, he instead I think signed a 3 or 4. He signed a 4-year deal with I think an opt out clause in his 4th year. And then in 2010, he ultimately took his talents to South Beach and won 2 championships with one in Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So, I look at this situation with Giannis, maybe not as elaborate as LeBron's during his first stint with the Cavs, but it has remnants of that. And it's interesting and it's cool to see. So I think he's taking his time. You'll definitely likely see something in the next week and a half. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I can't wait. And the Lakers made a good decision by trading for Anthony Davis. But like for Giannis, let's get into Giannis real quick. Like how come, like if Giannis doesn't want to stay there, how come he can't just be like, I want to leave, trade me behind the scenes? I don't want to lose. Like let's say if Giannis does ask out on the low, how come players can't just be like, I want to leave, trade me to a team that I want to, so you can get value from me? How come players don't do that in today's NBA?
So you're asking me how come players don't do what now?
Ask the GM, hey, I want to be out of Milwaukee. I want to go to Lakers. I want to go to the Knicks, but get value for me. I want to leave. I'm leaving Milwaukee. This is my final season.
I mean, those things are expressed. I reported back during Labor Day weekend that Giannis met with the Milwaukee Bucks Brain Trust and discussed moves that could potentially be made. And one of the names that was on Giannis's wish list of playing with in Milwaukee was running Chris Paul, as well as James Harden. And there was interest, but ultimately the Phoenix Suns kind of had a better orbit of players that they could delve out to respective teams. So this conversation, Giannis met with the Bucks ownership brass along with his brother, his mother, and over Labor Day weekend, and they discussed some of those things. I think I reported that September 10th. It was September 11th weekend, but I know that was something that was expressed. But Drew Holiday was also on the Bucks' radar, where he ultimately went in a trade with the New Orleans Pelicans, a highly respected point guard. But ultimately, I think when it was all said and done, they could really get much. I know that Boban Bogdanovic trade was rescinded. I could, a lot of people knew about it, but ultimately, when it all comes down to it, I think that Giannis wants to weigh his options. I know there's been talk about a super max. I know he wants to see what happens and how the team are going to get better. But I ultimately think that players do let them know what's going on. Like, I'll give you a perfect example of that. When you look at Chris Paul, the Knicks had interest, the Bucks had interest. The Knicks had more of an interest, and they, as I reported, had a deal lined up. The Phoenix Suns quietly, had interest, and that's where he ultimately went. Sam Presti, the general manager of the Oklahoma City Thunder, has had a proven track record of trying to get players that are stars who have given their all to that organization in Oklahoma the best way of getting what they want. We saw it with Russell Westbrook when the two choices of teams he had interest in going to were the Houston Rockets and the Miami Heat. I was with Russell the day he was traded out in Oklahoma, and it was shared with me that ultimately he was upset that he was traded. He couldn't believe it. He was kind of like, whoa. But at the same time, they gave him what he wanted. You saw it with Paul George, who asked out and found his way to the Los Angeles Clippers and teaming up with Kawhi Leonard out there. So, Chris Paul is in a good situation, and I know that it had to have been communicative. But that's what he wanted in Phoenix, and there's there. So every player and every front office is different.
Okay. Yeah, man. Like if I was in Milwaukee situation, if I was a GM and Giannis came to me, I'm undecided yet about comeback. I'd be like, I'll probably just, we're trading you, Giannis. You didn't give us a direct answer. Goodbye. get value. Because if Giannis leaves Milwaukee, Milwaukee will be a lottery team for the next 10+ years. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In my personal opinion.
I think it's not so much it's not with these younger players. They watch the Charles Barkley's, the Patrick Ewings, be the Carmelones, John Stocktons, be loyal to that one team. Kevin Garnett kind of was, but kind of was a throwback because he ultimately was traded to the Boston Celtics and won a ring in his first year alongside Ray Allen and Paul Pierce. But when you look at situations with these stars, they look at what the old guard did, and they don't want to be like that, and they want to win championships. I think that's why Buddy Ball, is such a thing. I look at the situation. I wrote about this Thanksgiving morning. Michael Redd had the opportunity, was very serious about joining the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2005, playing alongside LeBron James in his first stint, and he ultimately decided to sign a longer-term deal, with the Milwaukee Bucks. And he made the money. He didn't win a championship, but it would have been cool to see two Ohio guys. Michael Redd being a product of the Ohio State University, and playing alongside LeBron, an Akron product, Ohio product would have been cool. And I asked Michael Redd, hey, do you think you guys would have won a championship in 2007 when you guys played against the Spurs? Had you guys teamed up? He said, that's something me and LeBron have often talked about. And they think that could have happened. So it would have been interesting. But that was at a time when LeBron couldn't get guys to join him in Cleveland. The thought of Cleveland was kind of corny to people. Like, why would you go to Cleveland? I've been to Cleveland. I actually had a good time in Cleveland, but many people, didn't want to back then. So, every relationship is different. But I would say that guys communicate, and they it's kind of like when you drafted, it's predestined to where you're going to go next in a lot of respects.
Yeah, just like Joakim Noah said, who wants to be in vacation in Cleveland? When him and LeBron had the little beef.
Cleveland is Cleveland cool.
Yeah.
I never heard anybody say, let's go to Cleveland. That was the old guard.
Yeah.
It's different now. Like Cleveland has, nice apartment complexes and place to hang out. I remember when I went to Cleveland, I learned that the movie A Christmas Story was filmed in Cleveland, and I visited the story. Or I visited the house. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. But Brandon Robinson, always a pleasure for you coming on the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast. Go ahead and give out your social media so they can follow you and listen to your show.
Yeah, man. You can follow me on Twitter at ScoopB, Instagram and Snapchat at Scoop_B. Make sure, most importantly, that you subscribe to the Scoop B Radio Podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or simply by visiting ScoopBradio.com. I think we got about 2 million streams last year on the platform, and also hosting a digital show. I'm a senior writer at Heavy.com. You can check out my written work there. I also have a digital show called Heavy Live with Scoop B. Got everybody from porn star Lisa Ann to Jeff Van Gundy to NFL Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk. We've got everybody on there. And yeah, man, Jonathan, thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
No worries, man. Thank you for always coming on, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Of course, my man. I'll talk to you.